Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Good Stuff. I'm Kevin Bille, and as always, we appreciate you joining us today. Well, hey, it's been, I don't know, maybe 8, 9, 10 episodes here till we had a football guy on. Little did I know how much basketball he's got in him, which I'll get to right away. But we have the head football coach from Southern Illinois University with us, Nick Hill. Nick, what's up, man?
Kevin, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we were able to connect. I've listened to quite a few of these, watched them on YouTube as well. And so I'm just honored that you had me on.
Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, man, we got to go back here a little. I know you're still a young pup, but I had no idea how good you were at hoops. I should have been recruiting you then, but and I never really knew how much of this when I started to get into your story a little bit more in terms of this, I guess, coming back home, if you will, right? Let's start there because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, just I talk pretty passionately about it. I'm a homebody. I really am. I'm from Southern Illinois, which Southern Illinois is. I always say it's about 250,000 people made up of a bunch of small towns. I mean, small communities. For example, my hometown, DuQuoin, Illinois, is 20 miles north of. I'm looking at out of our stadium right now, Route 51. Goes right through right here, and you follow that north 17 miles and you go to Main Street in DuQuoin. And so that's where I grew up, 6,000 people, great small community, graduated with about 100 people in my graduating class. And small town high school sports, so we all grow up playing everything together, baseball, basketball, swimming, football. It doesn't really matter. I grew up as just a basketball, everything. The only reason I played football was because DuQuoin High School has a great high school football tradition. Had a high school coach there for 30 years. Coach Martin, who I had the honor of playing for, is in the Hall of Fame, and we've won some state championships. And it was one of those things where I just didn't want to miss out. Like, I wanted to be a part of going out there on the field. So I played and ended up having fun. I loved it, but I was still a basketball guy. And my journey has brought me kind of full circle. Ended up going to Western Kentucky on a basketball scholarship. Transferred back here to play bowl sports. Got to play bowl sports for one season here. Went to the NCAA tournament. Chris Lowry was the head coach.
Yeah.
Got to be a part of a great winning culture there. Honestly, things that I still keep with me here as far as competing and toughness, that's what they were built on. I mean, we were winning basketball games like, 50 to 45. Every game was just, bloodbath. And so got to practice all year and do that. And then tried making it professionally for like 5 years, playing, professional football, bouncing around a lot of small leagues at Arena League and having some fun. And then wanted to be a high school coach. So we moved from Orlando back up here to be Carbondale High School's football coach in 2013. And then 3 years later, I had no real plans of this, but was the head coach here at SIU 3 years later. And still here, just finished season 5, going on season 6.
Man, oh man. Yeah, we'll get to that timeline. I would be interested to hear your take, though. I'm just curious. What would you say are the similarities, and then what would you say are the differences between football and basketball? Because I'm really intrigued by this.
Well, I would say, the similarities as a coach. I would even say now one of my best friends, especially just our professions. We were here together as our head basketball here. Brian Mullins is a Hall of Fame basketball player. We're 2 years apart, but we're here for 3 years together at SIU. We lived by each other in our apartment complexes. And then he's went on, and now we're neighbors now. And so we talk all the time about our, building a team, how we recruit. I mean, everything that we're looking for, what makes a great player, just the toughness and the, the off the field things on how you build your staff and all of that. Mm-hmm. Those are all similar. I mean, really in all the sports, honestly, we kind of have the same passion for just watching all these, soccer and rugby and how they build their teams and their cultures and the things going on. So I think there's all those similarities across all sports, but I would say the thing that's different in football is just the amount of people
Yeah.
There's 105 guys. I always tell him that all the time with academics and stuff. You're chasing around. You got like one-on-one coaching. You got like 10 coaches on the bench and 12 players. And, we got 105 guys in a locker room, and how you have to truly, I think you develop in basketball, but you could get a kid that comes in and is ready to go and make an impact as a true freshman.
Right.
Football is a true developmental sport. Your linemen aren't going to be ready to go. They got to be willing to just redshirt and work. And so I'd say those are probably the differences, the amount of people, the 11 guys that you have to have out there. And where I think probably you can't just recruit one difference maker in football and change your team. You could have a difference maker and still have a really bad team. In basketball, you find those one or two difference makers, it might get you to 20 wins. And so I'd say that's kind of the difference.
Yeah, I agree with you. That is the one that sticks out to me. Because I always thought we didn't have football at the school where I was at in Cleveland, then we got it. And just being around that. The other thing I was really impressed with, Nick, I thought, we have X's and O's, but at the end of the day, if I had the best player, we were probably going to win. But you guys, the adjustments that you're making, on 3 plays and out and, 10 play drive. I thought if everybody could recruit kind of like some of those basketball guys, getting that one or two big, but then the X's and O's from the football coaches amaze me. I think that's really, really impressive. You talk about, a little bit there, you alluded to your career. And then you didn't mention, but you lost to Joe Flacco, that last game. And like you said, that then you went to the NFL, but I'm anxious to hear about this a little bit, because I'm sure that didn't go the way that maybe you had planned it.
Yeah. But looking back, honestly, and I'm kind of like this now, even I would hope that everybody, even on our staff now through the 4-7 and the 2-9 seasons, that pretty, optimistic. I mean, it hurts, and you're optimistic and you keep a good attitude. But I think, like you alluded to, man, my true joy and happiness, honestly, it comes from the Lord and my faith, and it can get you through that. So I was happy to be picked up by the Bears, and it was a crappy ride home down Interstate 57 when I got cut, but probably more so to call everybody and tell my parents and my dad, who were really riding. They didn't put pressure on me, but you wanted to succeed for them. Yeah. They were happy you were there. But honestly, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if it wasn't for getting cut from the Bears. Like I tell our team that all the time. I mean, during those times, they're still going to be, you can't just be happy-go-lucky, like, oh, I got cut, or man, we lost this game, or this season was tough. You're going to, mourn and have those things. But then I told them, like, I wouldn't have met my wife if I didn't get cut from the Bears, and my kids wouldn't be here. That's a true story. I was cut. I was back here training. I was in the rec center. I met Alicia. That doesn't happen unless I get cut. So if you believe in that, hey, you got to trust these paths, then you can keep happiness, and you can be happy even though you're living in your parents' basement, training at back in college and doing all those type of things. So it didn't go the way I had like drawn it up. But honestly, I mean, I had some unbelievable teammates and people in the Arena League and bouncing around doing it the hard way, working jobs in between, and Arena 2s on sleeper buses, driving all over the country to go play in these arenas and stuff. It was fun. And, you were around some guys that just truly loved to keep playing, and met a lot of great people along the way.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's part of that plan that you're talking about for you. And I bet that is just something that, these guys can have a relatability to you. You're not too far apart from them. Unfortunately, you just keep getting older and they stay the same age. So that's
right.
Negative. But I think right now you have that ability to connect with them. And I'm sure that really resonates. You alluded to this already, Nick. We talked about it the other day on the phone. Just a little bit more, like how helpful was your faith at that time, or when you go through any of these situations right now as a coach, right? I mean, it can be a roller coaster, and there's a lot of failure in this, and I love the ability to persevere and being resilient, and I think that's a big part of who you are, but that faith is the foundation of what you do and who you are.
Yeah, and look, I mean, being a I mean, a Christian is not easy, and being at that age too. And so it wasn't that I was just this model Christian. You know, I believe that he was always steering my path, and there was a trust. And but you know, I always say that too. You always hear some people maybe talk about pro athletes and things like that, and it's like, well, they need prayer too. I mean, you weren't blessed with their ability, or you weren't blessed with a talent that made you a first round pick. We got to pray for them that they, you know, like that, those were God-given abilities too, and
Right.
a lot on their shoulders. And so you're pulled in a lot of different directions. But in my faith, really, honestly, in the last 2 or 3 years has grown a lot, just in the maturity as a Christian, really just wanting to know and dive deeper into understanding and wanting to know who Jesus was and what his life was like, and who Paul is, and who all these guys in the Bible. And then you can really start to understand what the gospel really is. And it's easier to then see as a calling as a coach, when these guys sit in your in front of you, you know, end of the year meetings, or things come up and somebody's in trouble. And it's like, man, you know, that's, you know, there's always a perfect timing to where you can relate it or draw, you know, like, hey, even if you're not a believer, let me tell you about this. You know what I mean? You're messed up. You know, Paul, who wrote all these books in the Bible, do you know who he was before this? Like, you're not scaring anybody off. You know what I mean?
Yep.
With whatever, and we're going to get through this thing. And so I think my faith, my wife's faith, my wife was baptized right in the middle of the 2019 season.
Okay.
Honestly, we were laying in bed. I think it was before we got beat from South Dakota State. And it was almost, she was like, I'm almost, I don't know if we would have been able to do this like a few years ago. And, you know, I got the job when I was 30, she was 27. We had no kids, and then she was pregnant. And it's a lot to raise kids and be a head coach, and you're losing, and there's a lot of things. And so I don't know if we could have either, but we've had some mentors in our church, and our lead pastor is one of my best friends. We were roommates in college. He's from DuQuoin, the town that I said that grew up in, and we played. And so we've been friends since like 5 years old. And he went on to become a pastor, and him and his wife have been just rocks for us and led us in an unbelievable way. And so, yeah, I think the roundabout answer to your question, I don't know how people can do it without that, you know, peace and happiness, really, because if not, they're just a bunch of empty wells. You know, football is, life is tough, marriage, your kids, you always feel like but if you can have that true peace of that, it's not that it's going to be easy. There's going to be tough times, but if you have that foundation, I don't know how anybody else does it any other way.
Yeah, for sure. Such an anchor. I appreciate you sharing that with us. I'd want to know real quick before we, you know, well, maybe two things, I guess, that are coming to mind. What was your biggest takeaway from your time playing professionally?
Wow, it was, you know, well, when I was in Chicago, I was just trying to hold on. You know, it was a great experience, but now that you look back, you see all these assistants that have went on, and you keep, like, I have notebooks full of stuff. Now I'm feeling real old, but that was in 2008, you know, 13 years ago, and there's still relevant, still those team meeting notes. And then I was able to go play in the Arena League, and then I got a rare opportunity to come back out of the Arena League and go to get picked up by and signed by Green Bay. And, you know, those short I think I was there maybe 3 months or 4 months, being around Aaron Rodgers, Mike McCarthy, Graham Harrell, who become a great friend just because we lived in the hotel together, played a ton of golf together, and now he's the offensive coordinator at USC. And it was really just the relationships, watching how these guys worked. I mean, I was just trying to soak up every day, but now you see why they're great pros. Like, people know about Aaron. It's like, look, no one, he's the smartest guy in the room. You know what I mean? Like, it's, I'm there, I'm an Arena League guy. I'm just trying to learn the formations, and he's there, right there, going like step one, you know, what's this formation called? I mean, he knows it more than the coach, but he's listening to the coach. it's a new quarterback coach. Like, he's been there forever. He's the MVP. Like, but he had the respect to listen and ask questions and really just fine tuning things. And I think that's what in pro football, like the NFL, was, to be a pro. And I talk about that all the time because I always use that not as leverage with our players, but hey, raise your hand if you want to be in the NFL in a couple of years. They all raise their hand. You know? And it's like, okay, is this how you're working? And we've been fortunate to have some pros on our team the last few years, and there's no secret why they get there. I mean, Jeremy Chin, the second round draft pick that we had last year in 2019, unbelievable worker. I mean, maybe the best we've ever had. There's just no shortcuts to get to where they're at because they'll quickly weed you out there. So if they say they want to be a pro, then you got to start acting like a pro too.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting too, because I guess two things from that is you're probably emulating a lot of those things in your life. And then number two, who would have ever thought you'd be in the same room as the future Jeopardy host, right? I mean, it's, but
that doesn't surprise me that he's doing that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like, let's go back to this timeline, because this is crazy to me. I don't even know, I don't even know what to really discuss other than were you just so immersed in it that you didn't realize, I mean, January 13th, 2014, you're announced as the co-offensive coordinator, quarterback coach. Less than a year later, December 1st, 2015, you're now given the interim tag. And then a little bit more than a year later, January 4th, 2016, if I've got that right, Happy New Year, the interim tag is removed. And also, like you had just mentioned earlier, 3 years removed from being a high school coach and, as you alluded to, 30 years old. Like, when you look back on that, like, how do you grasp all of that?
Yeah, it was, number one, I say this all the time, almost like makes me feel uncomfortable because I see so many people's road to college coaching, and it's not this. And it's and great coaches. I mean, great coaches, hard workers, just trying to get a job. And so I feel unbelievably just blessed and fortunate. That's why I feel so connected to this school, because I know if it wasn't for this school and this time, I wouldn't have been the head coach. I was still maybe trying to be one. So I owe it to this school to give it everything I have, and to that I just, you just don't get this opportunity so many times. So yeah, I was the high school coach, and Coach Dell Lennon, who I have unbelievable amount of respect for, was the head coach here. And I really didn't even have to interview for that job. He called me in and was just like, obviously I had finished a playing career, and he was recruiting one of our players at Carbondale High School. So he was around quite a bit recruiting him and watching some of our games. And he was just like, yeah, I'd like for you to be the quarterback coach. Somebody else is going to call the plays, but would love for you to do it. And talk to my wife. I mean, I got to go to college coaching and not even move. No one did that either. And so still, I was like, if there's ever a time to do that, I did that. And then the next year in the 2015 season, they named me the play caller, which was an unbelievable experience. Our first game was at Indiana. We scored like 2 points or whatever, and 600 yards of offense. Our quarterback ended up leading the country in total offense. And that's why I say now, when players, I mean, if it wasn't for Mark Ionati, that quarterback, I wouldn't have been the head coach either. And so then they let Dale go, and they did a national search. And I think this is another faith thing or God thing. I don't know if I was their number one choice in that deal. I interviewed, but some guys turned it down, and I was still here. And of course, I didn't care how I got it. I wanted it. If they were going to give it to me, it didn't matter to me if somebody else was their choice. And so, and then I just kind of hit the ground running. I played for Jerry Kill. So I think probably as a 30-year-old filling your staff for a guy that hadn't been in the college ranks for a little while. But I was thankful for Coach Kill. I mean, a lot of us on that first staff were all Coach Kill guys, whether they GA'd for him, played for him, some past teammates. And so put together a good staff, and then just learned along the way. Recruiting has always not came easy. I think recruiting, you got to pick the right players, but I love relationships, and anybody can be a good recruiter if they do that. They're honest, they're hardworking, they form relationships. We signed a great class, 2016 class. I got, there's going to be, I think 13 of them are coming back next year as super seniors, the very first.
Wow. Wow.
So we're going to coach it. We're going to be together for 6 straight years. My first class, they're still here. And that's what we've been able to turn around. I mean, we're going to have the oldest team in the country next year. And we've came together, we've grown together, and everybody stayed.
Yeah, that'll be great in terms of language and commonality. And like, what would you say, what did you think you knew before you became a head coach, and then you found out you eventually had no idea about it? Because I could write a book on this part.
I think, you have all these ideas, but you can't do that without a, number one, an unbelievable staff around you. I think, you almost thought that I knew that it wasn't going to be easy, but it was almost like, we might have a year or two, but then we're going to be right there and doing it. And I think you got to have that confidence, but you quickly learn that there's so many other really good football coaches, really good staffs, that this is not going to be, it's not going to be easy. I think the biggest thing as a head coach, and I always tell coaches this all the time, I've had a chance to go back for the 35 under 35 and speak to them again, is so many things come across your desk that have nothing to do with football. I mean, you have especially in our business, 105 guys. And if you do it the way that I believe that you're supposed to be, and be truly invested in their lives and care about them, and they know that they can come to you with anything, you say that all the time. Well, then, I mean, from mental health, family problems, depression, just tough things that really will rock you. And you have no idea that day when you show up, who's going to knock on your door and come and sit there. And, you have to be ready to do that. So you really, when you become the head football coach, you really you have a lot of other titles,
yes.
Tons of them, that you didn't really go interview for, and you got to be ready for that.
Yeah, I definitely didn't know I was going to be doing the laundry and sweeping the floor, and not that it was beneath me, of course, but yeah, you're immersed in every and anything, and of course, I think that does depend on how you feel, philosophically, like you had just mentioned. I was the same way. I think, hey, it's a 4-year decision, right? But ultimately, it's a 40-year decision. It's going to impact your life forever, and hopefully you're learning a lot of things, and even learning what not to do sometimes, for me, to make yourself successful. If somebody was listening to this, Nick, whether it be, coaches coming into a program that's struggling, a business owner just, took over and they're struggling, you've got this track record now of turning this program around. What would be your advice to them?
Well, number one, I've learned is, not learn, but I think that we've done this since you just have to be authentic. You have to be yourself. There's really not a shortcut. You can't go to a clinic or have a seminar and then leave, and you'll quickly learn that it's, those are the answers, but you have to go do them. You have to live them out. They might take time. They might take longer than you think. And I think the biggest thing for me, and it'll keep doing this, is just, it's a heart to care. And it's a heart to care for your GAs and your student assistants and your, walk-on players. And if you do that consistently and truly do that, not just because you read it in, one of these books that John Gordon might care about it, and it's like, okay, I'm going to try it this week. Well, that's not real. And that's going to run out, and you're going to do your true colors. But if you're just truly invested in this thing and you keep going through it, then you will eventually, the process will take care of itself. And you hear that all the time, but then you will have times where you're frustrated that you're not seeing the results quick enough, maybe. But I think you hear that doing it the right way all the time. I like some of these clips that you see on Twitter now where they clip those up of all the introduction, the press conference. But I think that's what they're talking about. It is, you have to commit to doing things the right way. That's number one, starting with how you treat people, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Treating them right, what you say when you recruit them. It's you got to live that out every day.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. I like it. I mean, you're definitely winning now, obviously more than you're losing. I mean, this past year you beat the number 1 team, the number 3 team, the number 4 team, and ironically lose to the number 2 team in a close game. But do you credit something in particular to the success you're having now as a program? And more importantly to me, how do you sustain that now, Nick?
Yeah, number one, I say it's really you got to have good. You do have to have good players. You have to. I think the one thing that we did is kind of quickly maybe adjust a little bit of the recruiting philosophy or who we needed to win in this league, because the league is so good. Like, we're going to have to play that same thing next year. If you want to win this league, you're going to have that resume every year, because there's 6 of us that are ranked in the top 25, and usually 3 of them are going to be in the top 10. So those are just regular season games for you.
Wow.
And so you had to kind of quickly say, okay, we can't just take it from become a top 25 team, be ranked 22nd, and have a 8-3 record. Like, you could do that and have a team that you feel that's that good, and you might be under 500. So we're going to have to, what are these guys doing? What do they look like? What's their strengths? What's our league doing to win our league? So I think our recruiting model kind of changed with that, who were taken in the transfer portal and the transfers at that time. And so I think that, yeah, to sustain it, the other one is you've got to, your best players, they have to play well in big games. And we talk about that too. This game is quarterback driven. I mean, when you look back in the games that we won, our quarterback played well. They're going to have to make some off schedule plays. They're going to have to, you're just going to have to trust your team. That's the biggest thing for me too. I think on game day that I've become, it's having that faith. Is you got to have faith in your team. Once you've put in the work, like, that's the hardest part of not playing, is you're over there. Like, hey, you've done everything. You got to just trust them. Just let them go play. You're going to be there throughout the game and adjustments that you've talked about. And we're going to do everything that we can, but you got to trust that process and let them go. And when you do that, it's more freeing. I think to sustain it is, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm looking forward to, I feel like I get more work done sometimes on vacation, where you just put your phone up and you're in your mind and you're thinking about, when I come back, what are we going to be doing? You could be out for a run or a walk, and you could be doing a ton. And it's, look, in their last team meeting before we left, and you hear this all the time about, climb a mountain, or I like to run. And I ran a couple half marathons a couple years ago, but I couldn't go do that now. Just because you finish one of them doesn't mean like next year you just go right back out there and be able to run 13 miles again. Like, you have to go back to training. You have to go back and put in the work. You have to go back and be detailed. And so for us to sustain it, which is unknown right now, if you start reading all the Twitter and feeling good about yourself, like, that doesn't mean we're going to go down to SEMO and win that rivalry game again just because we won it last year. Like, so it's going to be, if you climb Mount Everest, like, you do it once, you talk to the people the second time, like, yeah, you've been up there and you know what's coming, but it's not any easier. Yeah. And so to sustain it, we got to have a group of guys that stays hungry, that recommits. And I've been like, if our 6-year seniors come back here and they keep acting in the weight room and have that hunger out in player-led practices like they did when they were freshmen and sophomores, then the next year's season will take care of itself. And I think we can be really good. But if they start cutting corners or feeling good, or, man, we're going to get to 6 or 7 wins next year, it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Hey, this past year was crazy. I know we talked about that too. I heard something that you said. I loved it. It was, change is inevitable and growth is optional. Was this an overriding philosophy for you just this past season, or is that just something that, you believe in general, regardless of, because, if COVID hits or not?
Yeah, I think before COVID hit, but that was just a statement we talked about on ton throughout all of our Zoom meetings, thinking about all of the Zoom meetings we've had. It almost makes you smile, this time last year, hey, everybody's on Zoom, you got pages full of people. But yeah, that's the truth. And that's coming this year too. And I, now that they're so used to that and trust that too, it's, someone's going to get injured. There's going to be change. You don't get to, but the growth portion of it, it really is. It's your choice to either grow from it or just be stuck. And so, yeah, I think that it definitely helped during COVID, because we were all kind of searching. And I kept saying that to our guys too. I mean, it was, as we look back, maybe one of the best times in history of our lifetime to really separate yourself. It really, I mean, the thing,
Yes,
I mean, I've said this before too. It's you don't want to sound insensitive to the situation.
for sure. Yeah.
COVID and the pandemic and some of what the people go through. It's kind of like people that are dealing with it closer with cancer or something like that. But also during the pandemic, you truly had an opportunity to do some things that you weren't able to do. You had no excuses during COVID. You didn't to grow, to research, to read, to get in shape, it just all comes down to the discipline, whether you have the discipline to do it. And that's really what it all comes down to that's the difference. Like we all have the answers. It was really my pastor had this sermon. It's the main and the plain. And it was before we talked to Youngstown the night before when I really talked to the team. I talked about the main and the plain, and I talked about the sermon. And it's the same thing at like coaches clinics. They ask you to come on. And I always say this, like, you're going to hear things that you already know. If you're coming here to hear this new exciting deal, I don't have it. It's the same plays. We're probably running the same things. It's the main and the plain. It's the same thing as the gospel. You might show up on Sunday hoping you hear this new deal. And it's like, nope, it's still the same books in the Bible. It's the same thing. It's the same, the discipline that's going to get you there isn't going to change. And so I think that's the thing that just is a missing piece in a lot of these coaches, kids, myself. I mean, there's days you wake up, you got to talk to yourself about you can do it, but it's the discipline part of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, we've probably talked about that even the last couple of guests here, and I know that's something that, excuse me, I've said on here before that I tell my kids, and we were talking about that parenting the other day, but it's like, it's easy to work out on the days you feel like it, right? I mean, probably, my biggest takeaway in all those years of playing, coaching, and now like doing this or being around other people that are successful, I think it is. You've hit it right on the head. It's the daily discipline. They just have the ability to do it, whatever you want to call it, even if it's boring. They do boring better than anybody else, right? And I think they also, the resiliency that we alluded to a little bit earlier, it's one thing to get knocked down. It's another thing to get knocked out. So I think that's really, really key. So thank you for bringing that up. What would you say, and we'll wrap up here, Nick, soon, but what would you say is the best part of coaching to you?
Honestly, it is this season, like I found myself getting emotional several times, whether it was just sitting back and watching your team celebrate, watching them reap the rewards of the hard work, watching them in the locker room, seeing them and their families, watching them outside the locker room, hug their families, because it's a family thing too. You're sitting there of the reward of like getting a kid to come across the country and come here, and they believe in you. Really, you get them to come here and you want them to have success, not for yourself, but just so they can have that feeling. You also know that the tough times are going to make them better too. But you also want to see them have that happiness in their smile and their teammates hugging each other. Like that's what's just going to keep you going. The relationships and the players, the end of the year meetings, someone that's leaving, like we have a few, and they come up and give you a genuine hug and thank you for everything that you've done for them. And that's really it. I mean, still I get fired up. Like I had to play golf for the first time in a while on Friday, and I love to play golf, but I've learned that until the day that I can like practice all the time, I'm giving golf up for a little while, because I don't like going out there and getting beat by anybody. Like if I'm going to go shoot like 44, I don't want to do it. Like I've got to do better than that. And so I still love that feeling of, winning too out on or like Northern Iowa, it's 4th down and we throw a touchdown pass like that feels good, and celebrate with your team. Like I still find myself feeling like a little kid on the sideline, or like I threw the touchdown pass. And so, if that would ever go away, then that would be tough to keep coaching too.
Yeah, for sure. I know exactly what you mean. Well, hey, as we wrap up here, like what's one way or multiple ways maybe that you grow? I know we like talking about books on here, just habits in general. What are some of those things for you?
Yeah, I would say when I'm in my best routine, number one, it's staying in the Word. Like you say like that all the time. I even text Casey, is our preacher's name, and this morning, and I was like, shoot me the link to because I want to go back, and like that was like a learning opportunity in itself, scripture, and then like finding a book that really, I mean, because I just feel like the Bible's full of every genre of self-help or whatever you want to do. It's right there. And so, like I said, like, honestly, I like to run. And when I'm in my best, like feeling like I'm learning, is like audio books and podcasts while I'm running. Like if I go out for an hour run and I like have a podcast that is just with me, or a book that I'm really in, then I just come back and I have so many ideas, and my pen is going, and I'm ready to go. And so I found that then I can get away. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not distracted. And so that's kind of when I'm in my best learning, is really, I mean, reading. I mean, the people you meet and the relationships you make and the books you read, that's how you're going to get better, Yeah. And so it's meeting new guys like yourself, establishing relationships, and watching them on what they're doing, like I want to know what the successful people are doing, or the people that are growing and pushing themselves, and never feeling like you can't learn from anybody, not anybody just because they have a title. So it's the people and relationships, and then, books and books and podcasts.
Do you have a favorite? I mean, obviously you alluded to the Bible, but do you have a favorite book or one you're reading right now that you really like? Or I know you're just getting into the off season, but
man, I have a ton. I have I read basically anything that comes out. I want to. I'm about to download a couple for my vacation of hitting the beach. So if you've got a couple that that you think of. There's one that I think is great for head coaches, and you should put it out there. It's called The Tough Stuff, and it just out, and it's about head coaches, and it really does a deep dive about how that the real tough stuff that head coaches go through, how it can be lonely at the top, and how they really live a real life too. And it sounds, and it goes through, it's an Aussie rules coach that writes it, but he goes into rugby, soccer. Joe Dumars is in there there's a lot of basketball in there. And Dan Quinn, who was fired from and like that, these are real lives. They have real families. There's real emotion. There's depression. There's like the lows of lows, and you're still got that title. And so I read that the last 2 road trips, and that was an excellent book.
Now that's the one. Is that Cody Royal? Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Good. Well, hey, as you know, we kind of go rapid fire to finish. I'm not going to fool you on any of these if you've already listened, unfortunately. And I thought maybe I'd have to change this from 3-pointers to like 3 throws, like they used to do at the Pro Bowl. But since you are better at hoops than I knew, we'll stick with 3-pointers here. But number one, if people could learn just one thing, from this talk, Nick, and hold on to it, what would you want that to be?
Number one, just I would say, pursuing that your faith, keeping your faith. Number one, I would say if anybody would ask me where your peace and happiness comes from, it would be your relationship with Jesus. Find out more about Jesus, and I think that it's natural to have more peace.
Great. Thank you. Number 2, if you could have come over here today and been behind the mic, what question would have you asked of Coach Hill that I did not get a chance to ask today?
I would have asked about I love the outdoors. So it would have been maybe I love to hunt and fish. Like that's my number one thing. I always tell people I'm gonna retire at some point early so I can go bow hunt for elk in the mountains because it's a fall season and it's a fall football season. So at some point I'm gonna have to get that off my bucket list and go hunt elk in the mountains with my bow.
Awesome. Well, that's good to know. Well, hey, finally, as you know, good stuff is the name of this, giving us plenty of that today. But what's something else that's good stuff right now to you, or anything just in general you feel is appropriate?
Yeah. Right now I'm excited about the best stuff is, especially for coaches is, I'm super excited about spending a bunch of time with my little girls and my family, just excited about it. It was funny. It does put it in perspective. We got beat week 1 by North Dakota. And I get home late, my wife couldn't go to the game, COVID and all this kind of stuff. We get back and they waited up for me we played kind of early in the afternoon. We get back on the charter and I get there, they waited up for me to put them to bed. And I was like, yeah, we got beat, Sky. And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, we got beat. And she was like, that's all right. Like she had no idea that like what losing even means. And I was like, I just smiled and I was like, put it in perspective. And then the same thing, my youngest 3-year-old, she was almost wanting us to get beat because the whole time I kept telling her we're going to go on this trip. Season keeps getting long, one more week. And I was like, as soon as the season's over, we're going to go on a trip. So she was ready for us to get beat and eliminated from the playoffs so we could go on the trip. But it does put it in perspective that at home, man, that's the good stuff for me is just hanging out with my girls and just really relaxing and being with our family.
Yeah, amen to that. Hey, and I gotta put a quick plug in. I'll never forget when I was gone, similar to you, like I was gone for like a couple months in season. We had been on the road recruiting. I just wasn't home much. And my wife had tried to bring up to the boys. I think they were 5-3 at the time, ironically. And hey, let's talk about some good stuff and just in general about Dad. And it got to our oldest, and he finally said, well, I know one thing, because it was kind of, what is Dad like? What can we do? He said, well, I know one thing Dad doesn't like. And she said, yeah, what's that? And he said, well, he doesn't like to be sick and tired. Because when I'm at home, I'm like, guys, I'm sick and tired of the house being. So, yeah.
That's true. You got to catch yourself doing that because it's easy to do that,
Yeah, for sure. But that's great. Thanks, Nick. Well, hey, man, where can our listeners connect with you and with the football program, social media wise, online, all that?
Yeah. Our social media department, I feel like, especially at our level, does as good a job as anybody. So connecting with us at, Saluki Football on Twitter, really Twitter is the best place. And for me, that's probably where I'm the most active is on Twitter. I think it's at 17 Nick Hill. And so that's probably the best place, all the updates and everything as far as football goes. I would love for you to add us. We try to keep everybody updated as best we can on the team and then me personally and all of that.
Well, great. Well, hey, Coach, I've really enjoyed this. Enjoyed just getting to know you. I look forward to hopefully building our relationship. I love from afar. I love your energy and passion. I mean, it's evident to me right away. I've got a great deal of respect for the job that you're doing, but more importantly, how you're doing it and who you are. That's awesome to me. You're doing wonderful things, and wish you nothing but continued success. Hopefully, I can get over there to see a practice or game sometime, and catch you in Youngstown, of course. But continued success. Have a great trip, and thanks for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you having me on. I agree. I'm glad we connected. I'm glad I could come on and look forward to following along on the podcast. I get a lot out of it.
All right, great. Well, hey, everybody, thanks again for spending time with us. You can always, as you know by now, reach out to me, goodstuffkevin@gmail.com. Shoot me your thoughts on this episode, any other episodes that maybe you've watched, or any other insight that you might have. I would greatly appreciate that as well. So thanks for spending time. And until next time, good stuff.